Hey, and welcome to the Dangerous Creatives podcast. If you're growing your photography or creative business, you're in the right place. Each week, we deliver a workshop-style solo show, expert interview, or motivating story from our community so you can tune in to find encouragement, motivation, and ideas to help the right people find you and your amazing work. I'm your host, Kristin Sweeting. I'm a photographer and coach, and my favorite thing is helping dangerous creatives just like you stand out in a world that just wants us to blend in. I'm glad you're here. Let's dive in. Well, hey, and welcome back to the Dangerous Creatives podcast. I'm your host, Kristin Sweeting, and I'm so excited to have Andy Hill with me today. He is the host of the Marriage, Kids, and Money podcast. So I'm very excited to talk to you because I love talking about marriage, kids, and money, and just have listened to your podcast for a long time. So I'm glad that we got to connect. And I'm excited to dive into all the things. And I think the stuff that you talk about is going to be so helpful for our audience too.
Well, I'm honored to be here, Kristin. Thank you so much.
Do you mind giving us a little bit of an introduction to you, how you came to host this podcast, and a little bit of your journey into entrepreneurship too?
Sounds good. Yeah, my name is Andy Hill. I'm a family finance coach. And the reason I do that is because I have a family and we did not do so great with our money in the beginning of our marriage. So I figured, well, I should probably pay attention to my finances a little bit. So I decided to go on that journey, not only personally, but to help others along the way as well. So that was kind of the start of our financial journey together as a couple. And then about halfway through, I said, well, why don't I start a podcast so we can chronicle our journey, maybe help some other families along the way, interview some really smart people that could probably help us on that journey too. And then again, continue to share our learnings. And so that was around 2016. And so almost 10 years now, I've been doing the podcast. Around 2020, I decided to go full time with it. The big leap that I'm sure a lot of your solopreneur or digital entrepreneur audience is knows well about. And 5 years later, still standing strong, having a lot of fun, working part-time, and dedicating a lot more of my time to my health and my family, my awesome wife, and my kids.
That's amazing. Well, I know a lot of what you do is for that time freedom, and we talk about that a lot on this podcast, but we don't always get into the financial side of it. A lot of creatives don't really want to talk about money and don't really want to think about Roth IRAs or anything like that. But I guess I'd love to hear more of the heart behind it for you and what that time freedom has meant for you as you've dug into this part of your life.
Oh yeah, it's like a rewiring of my brain, honestly. I think that for so long I did hey, you're going to go to school and you're going to work hard. You're going to be at school the majority of your day. Oh, okay, now I'm in college. Okay, I understand the path of college. I got to study. I got to do well in order to get a job. And in order to get that job, I got to get some internships to help me work. So once I graduated at 21, I said, hey, let me get right into that corporate world and build up my wealth. And that way I can buy the house. That's the American dream, right? Okay, I'll get the house, I get the car. Well, there's a fancy car. That fancy car looks good. Maybe girls will think I'm better looking if I drive that fancy car. So, you just kind of fall into this trap of all the things that you're supposed to do. And with that, I just became so engulfed in my work that I saw this trap of like, okay, well, the more I work, the more trappings of the American dream I can have, whether that's the home, the house, the clothes, obviously the big engagement ring, maybe an MBA, things like this, of all the things that you're supposed to do. But over time, I quickly found that, wow, the more I dive into all the things I'm supposed to do, I'm moving further away from the things that I want to do or that I feel really good about. And so making a transition to the solopreneur life has allowed me to, and I'm a math guy. I like looking at it as math. There was some periods of my corporate career where I was working 50, 60 hours a week doing things for other people that I really didn't care about. But I knew at the end of the day, hey, I'm working hard to get this paycheck so that I can do the things that I'm interested in. But unfortunately, that time was very small in the week. It was like, okay, here's a bunch of money, but you don't ever really have time to do it and actually get prepared for the work week because it's coming up. It's Sunday. Get those Sunday scaries. And so now I'm in a completely flipped mode for my solopreneur life. I work 20 to 25 hours a week. And with the majority of my week, I'm focusing on my health. I've never exercised this much in my life. I'm focusing on my marriage. There were periods of time during my corporate life where our marriage was not looking all that hot. I didn't really dedicate a lot of time to my wife. I didn't dedicate time for communication and connection. Same thing with my children. I feel like there was some moments when they were very young where I was gone because of that was my job and I needed to travel. And now over the past 5 years, I've really leaned into becoming a present parent and I love every moment of it. And it's just been such a joy. So to be able to own my time and say, hey, here's what I'm doing with my work day just fills me with so much joy and pride. I even think about my work week. I'm excited about going to work, going to work. I'm here in my house right now working, but I'm excited to go to work, Monday afternoon till Thursday afternoon. Like I try to keep it a short week so that I can hold myself accountable to having a diversified lifestyle. So I'm really loving it right now. And I would love to help anybody out there who's considering doing something similar to move towards that path. And it takes some time, but I really think it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. I think the golden handcuffs you're describing is such an easy trap to fall into. And even as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I think it can be easy to fall into that as well because it's so easy to compare with, this person has this many projects booked, or, a lot of our audience is wedding photographers. So like this many weddings booked or this many photo projects or clients. And before you know it, you kind of have replicated, you've replicated that the same situation in your own business. And so kind of like always keeping what is your priorities front and center can actually be challenging. Like, I know you had that stark difference of corporate to freelance
Mm-hmm.
and got to think about that, but like how would you encourage someone who's like, okay, Andy, I kind of built my own golden handcuffs here. How
Yeah.
can I walk it back?
Well, I would say I've been in the same spot and forgive yourself because that's what is here for us. There's an opportunity, there's an allure for more and more. The problem with more and more is that it never stops. If you want something better and bigger, there's always going to be something bigger and better down the road too. So whether that's a bigger house or, instead of the great school system that you're in, you want the private schools, or, and it can be everything for parents too. It's the shinier thing. So just know that there's never really a finish line when it comes to consumeristic culture or anything that we have. So you have to find your moment of content. And if you find your work week starting to feel a little overwhelming, see what you can do to walk it back by an hour each week or month, whatever feels real to you. So if you're currently working in your solopreneur gig or your business and you're like, man, I am putting in 60 to 70 hours and I'm feeling burnt out, what can you do to start walking that back a little bit? Are you working nights that you don't want to work, or certain nights? Maybe you say, hey, okay, I'm going to always give myself Wednesday night available going forward. I'm just not going to book anything for that evening. Okay, does that feel good? Okay. Am I still making enough money now with me walking that back to live a good lifestyle? And of course, you got to balance that. That's the tough part. I like to talk about this story of the teacher who shows the class the jar with the empty jar and says, hey, I've got an empty jar here and I've got some rocks. I'm going to fill it up with rocks. And then the jar looks full because it's full with a bunch of rocks, and asks the class, hey, is this full? And the class says, yes, of course it's full. But then the teacher says, hey, I've got a jar of pebbles here. Now I'm going to fill that jar with some pebbles, and the jar finds space for those pebbles. Okay, now is it full? And they say, oh, of course, yes, now it's full. But then the teacher brings out a jar with sand and then starts to pour it in there, and that finds its way into these cracks. The example here for the story that the teacher's trying to tell is that, hey, we need to put our big priorities in there first, these rocks, And so after that, then you can put in the pebbles that are like, okay, this is your hobbies, your job, things like that. And then the sand, which can be your consumeristic things like, hey, you need the house, you need the car, you need those types of things. They're important, but they shouldn't be as important as the big rocks of your family, your health, things like that. I love this story as a visualization of how we should prioritize our lives, but I hate the story because it doesn't incorporate money. Because, of course, we would want to just prioritize all the best things in our lives, but you know what? We got to be able to afford it. So, in order for us to actually design our ideal work lifestyle or our ideal work week, we do have to balance how much money we actually need to come in with how much time we're spending in our job. So, if you're feeling like you're overwhelmed, lean into that overwhelm and say, maybe I could dial things back just slightly this week or over the next month in order to buy back more of my time. And with that, there may be trade-offs with your income, but see if those trade-offs are worth it. And in the same case, analyzing how you're spending that money can be a big part of the process.
That's such good advice. Yeah, I think doing some of those calculations in my own life also gave me the courage to like raise my prices or, outsource certain things or cut back on certain things, So knowing what those main core things are and then organizing things around it, I think is such a good activity to do every, I don't know, how often do you kind of like reevaluate? A couple times a
Oh
year?
man, I'm probably a bad example for how often I look at my business budget and the plans like that. But I would say having a tool that you can reference pretty easily and see if your budget is aligned with those priorities is a pretty smart thing to do. One thing that I like to do, like a quick hack, is I have my budget set up, but then I just kind of get into the busyness of my business and I continue on. Every once in a while, I put a little reminder for myself, one of those automated reminders. Hey, take a deep dive into this budget for 30 minutes or whatever, 20 minutes, and see what you're spending money on right now that you actually don't even need or use anymore. Are there subscriptions on there that you're paying for that you thought you might need like a couple months ago, and then it's just recurring, hitting your business credit card over and over again? You can easily delete that. And man, if that's a $20 subscription, might not seem like a lot, but that's $240 a year. Or if it's a $100 subscription, that's $1,200 a year. And you just saved yourself. How hard is it to get another client that might pay you $1,200 versus you just hitting the unsubscribe button on a subscription you don't use anymore, right?
Totally, totally. Yeah, I got into some bad habits because like at the very beginning, I was but everything, every little line item, I was so cheap. I didn't want to like invest in any programs or anything. And then you get to a point where like, ooh, there's more than enough. And so now the subscriptions probably need to be churned a little bit because it's easy to lose sight of what you're not focusing on.
Yeah, and I found that same thing of analyzation, yes, with subscriptions, also with resources too. As a solopreneur, I don't have any employees, but I do outsource certain types of the business. And if I find that the value of that outsource isn't worth it anymore, or I'm not utilizing it to the best of its ability, I take that time to look at it. And sometimes those big changes can mean a big deal for me and my own personal time freedom. Wow, if I eliminate this subscription or this outsourced resource that I'm not even using anymore, then can that buy me that Wednesday evening, like we are talking about, or that time back in my schedule where I'm able to take care of my health, spend more time with my family, spend more time with aging parents, my friends, things like that. Are you able to buy back your time by having that diligence in your budget?
I love that. How was it hard for you to figure out what your big rocks are, like what your big priorities are, or did that come pretty easily?
I think I think it just takes the time for you to stop and think about it for 30 minutes or 1 hour. And I have had more of that time since I finished my corporate life. I think I was frenetic in my corporate life, just trying to keep my head above water. I also had by the time I left my job, I had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old too. So between that
Yeah.
and trying to keep my marriage happy as well as trying to keep my bosses
You're
happy,
like, you were
I didn't
just
have
paddling,
I
like
didn't have any
just
time to
dog
think.
paddling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, once I made that transition, I was like, I want to do it all. I want to do all the things that I've always wanted to do. And of course, I overwhelmed myself even after I left my job, Like I'm like, oh, I have all the freedom in the world. I'm gonna learn the piano. I'm gonna be a better dad. I'm gonna be a better husband. I'm gonna cook for my wife more than I ever did. I'm gonna spend more time with my parents. And then of course, my schedule went it just got
Mhm.
overwhelmed and I failed at all of those things again, like on top of trying to grow my business. So after that, I'm like, okay, just take a couple of days to do nothing, man. And then think about what those most important things are in your life and then start budgeting both your time and your money to make those happen. And for me, it's a relationship with my family. For me, it's taking care of my health. When I'm healthy, then I'm a good husband. When I'm sleeping well, then I'm a good father. Like if I take care of myself, that trickles down to my family as well. So I try to prioritize my health first. And then I obviously think about the important relationship I have with my wife, how we can make that great. Because when our marriage is great, then our relationship with our kids is great. It sort of cascades from there. So if I'm taking care of myself, I'm taking care of my family as well. So it's hard to pour from an empty cup, Like if you're
Oh my
trying to do
gosh,
great things from other
totally.
people, but you got nothing in the cup, then you got to take care of yourself. So yeah, I mean, those big rocks I started to figure out were my health, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, connecting and staying social in my community, friends, close friends that I can talk to about important things, spending time with my aging parents. They're in their late 70s. I love them to pieces. They did so much for me in my life, being able to spend time with them and not just call my mom when I need something, like I'm like, call mom because you need to talk to mom, you love mom. And things like that. And then, at the end of the day, having some things that I can say that I can diversify my identity with a little bit. I like being an athlete. I like singing karaoke. I like goofing around with my friends. I like learning new skills. Like, where did that go in my life? That definitely went away when I went in my corporate life.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. But then when I turned into a corporate guy and then a husband and a father, it's like, what's hobbies? You forget about all those things. But when you get more time back in your life, you can diversify who you are. I love that.
I love hearing that because yeah, I do think we get so busy, and especially when when you love what you do, it is really easy for it to kind of take over everything too.
Yes.
But I love what you said about budgeting not only your time, your money, but your time too, and like what you schedule is like the important things in your life. And so, can you give an example? Like, how do you schedule that time? Do you take like your kids on dates certain days? Do you have
Sure.
like, I think it always is helpful to see like a little snapshot of what your week
Yeah.
looks like and
I
how
can
you
map out
schedule
a
that.
a quick version of the week. Yeah. So on Mondays, I usually don't try to work until around 2 p.m. My wife has Monday off because she works part time as well. And so we usually get the kids off to school and then we have some coffee together. We both like running, so we go for a run together. It's a great opportunity for us to connect and communicate and talk about the good things, the bad things, the things that are coming up, and helps us stay like on the same page. I've been trying to work on my fitness a little bit more, so I've been doing some strength training in the morning. I have some lunch, and then around 2, I start to throw into a little bit of work, and then work for a few hours that day. Tuesdays, a little bit more of the same thing, but I am working most of the day on Tuesday. My kids get out of school around 3 or 4, so I like to be there for them to whatever, catch up with them about the day. If it was a good day, a bad day, give them a snack, whatever, hang out with them for a little bit. And then they have after school sports that I love to attend. So my daughter plays volleyball and my son's trying out for the cross country team right now. So I like to be
Oh,
there for those
fun.
types of things. Wednesday again and Thursday, more of the same. I carry a good work day during the day on Wednesday and Thursday. And then I have been very hard trying to never work on Fridays. Now, do I do it every Friday? Sometimes the week gets away from me, but the majority of the time I don't work on Fridays. So I'm trying to do like a 3.5 day work week right now. And I know that doesn't work for everybody based on what you do or when the opportunity for the business is, but I try my best to do my work while my kids are at school and while my wife's at work. And that way I can hang out and be available and spend more time. And so Yeah, Thursday nights I
I
try to
love
get together with my
that.
friends for, some social time, and then I leave the weekends open for anything, everything, which is great.
I love that. I also try to take Fridays off and Tuesdays usually,
There
but
you
like
go.
it's yeah, having kind of the batch schedule is so nice, and
Yeah.
it's not perfect, but it's fun to kind of have some of those boundaries or like, boundaries in place so you can do other things again, because like the work is so what is it like it fills it fills whatever you time you give it, like
Yes,
work just
Parkinson's law, right?
expands.
Absolutely
Yeah.
right. Yes, yes, right. Absolutely.
Well, I know for you, I know a piece of this for you, financial independence and some of the fire movement has been a piece in
Yep.
what's created some time freedom for you.
Yes.
I don't know if our audience, we haven't talked about that very much on this podcast. Do you mind like kind of giving a little snapshot into what fire is?
Absolutely, yeah. So FIRE would stand for Financial Independence Retire Early. So this has been a popular movement probably over the past like 10 to 15 years where people got this distaste for the corporate life. And I think it has a little bit to do with this transition away from the defined benefit plan of corporations saying, hey, if you stick with us, we're going to give you a pension. We're going to take care of you. You could probably even retire in your 50s. Wouldn't that be nice? And my father had this situation. He actually had to be able to retire, I think, at 54. And so he's got a pension until he
Wow.
dies, which is so cool.
Oh my
And
gosh. Yeah.
and then that faded. Corporations said, hey, actually, we're going to make this be a 401k. You're going to have to contribute and you're going to have to know a lot about investments in order for you to like successfully retire. And we're actually going to move that back probably to like 60 years old. The problem with that is that the average American lives to about 78 years old. So now we're really pushing retirement down until the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years. And are the last 10 of those your healthiest? I mean, depends on how well you take care of your life. But unfortunately, the corporate life doesn't lend to you being able to take care of yourself all that well because you're
Yeah.
sitting
Yeah.
there typing away at a computer or sitting in a chair all day. And what do they say? Sitting is the new smoking, right? Like you got to be able
Mm-hmm.
to take care of yourself. So what was born out of that feeling was this movement called the financial independence movement or fire community or fire movement. And essentially it says, hey, while we have those corporate jobs, let's save a bunch of the money and then retire early. Let's make our own pension and get out of there. So
Mm-hmm.
financial independence became very popular with high income earners. These were maybe single folks that worked in engineering and they were making like $200,000-$300,000 a year. And they're like, hey, yeah, I mean, I could easily save half of that. No big deal. And if I save half of that, I can retire and get out of here in 15 years. So then you'd go from age 22 to 37 or whatever, 25 to 40 and be able to retire at 40 and be like, I got enough to live on. I'm totally good. That became a popular movement, but it also became something that was a little bit frustrating for people who didn't make $200,000 or $300,000 that had kids, that had a spouse, that was like, "What are you doing? No, I mean, this is ridiculous." And so there
Mm-hmm.
were other versions born out of the fire movement, and one that I like a lot is called Coast Fire. It's essentially the same sort of tenets of utilizing some of your corporate money, but dialing that back to maybe like 30% of your investing as opposed to 50% where it feels so intense. And then you get to a
Mm-hmm.
point where you're like, well, I've invested so much by age, call it 40, that I don't have to invest anymore. I'll just let that coast until I do retire officially at 60, and it'll be plenty by the time we get to 60. But I won't use it until I get to 60. In the meantime, I will create part time work that I really enjoy and make a good amount of money living my life because I don't need as much to save or invest because I've already done that heavy lifting early. So I really enjoy Coast Fire. So, for example, my wife and I saved and invested around $500,000 by age 40. And that helped us to say, hey, we've invested and saved enough. By the time we're 60, this thing's going to be about 2 million bucks. And that'll be plenty for us to live on when we're 60. In the meantime, my wife and I figured out, hey, since we don't have to save or invest and we've paid off all of our debt and our mortgage, we have a pretty low cost of living. Sounds like we only need some part-time jobs in order to live our happy lives today. Want to do that? And so we've been
Yeah.
doing that for 5 years now.
That's so fun. Well, and those are big accomplishments too, to have your house paid off and to have that nest egg saved. So, I mean, essentially, you don't have to invest anything else, right?
Yep.
And by the time
Yeah.
you retire,
Yeah,
it's
investing
enough
can
to
be a
retire.
really cool thing, but I mean, you have to think about what it's for. And so for a lot of people, investing is specifically for retirement. And if we don't have to invest for retirement anymore, then we don't need to invest, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, if unless you have other big goals, we don't have any other big goals right now that would require investing. We have short-term goals that require saving. So we want to get a car, so we're going to save up for that. We want to help our
Hmm.
kids, maybe buy a car in a couple of years. Again, saving up for that. But after we plan for retirement and hit that goal, we don't really need to do that anymore.
I love that. Well, I think the our audience already really has the like they're living the part-time, or a lot of us are working
Love it.
full-time, but like we're we're doing what we would want to do in retirement now, but
Exactly.
are trying to get maybe the financial piece in order. So like, the B word budgeting doesn't always feel super fun or creative, or investing can be intimidating.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on where to start with that, or
Yes.
even just the vision of like why care?
Yes.
Like I think that would
Well,
be super
I would say
awesome.
for somebody like your audience who is maybe working full time hours, but really likes what they do, they feel kind of inspired by it. Maybe having a reason to invest or save or budget can help, because the sheer act of doing those things does sound like a bummer, right? Being like, oh, I got to take some of my money and my time to like do financial boring stuff, right? But if you had a reason, like, okay, let's say, for example, you do like what you do and you're really happy about it. When do you think in your life later on, is that 60, 70, 80, whatever, would you want to stop doing that? And because you are your retirement source right now, you are your income source. So what might happen in your industry or what might happen in your life or your health where you would need to stop. And so that's when retirement investing might come in. So you might love what you do right now at 30, 20, 30, 40, 50, but there might come a time where you don't want to go to that wedding on the weekend anymore in your 60s, and you say, oh, I'd rather just spend more time with my family. I'd rather just spend more time relaxing than do that. That's a great reason to invest for your retirement, so that you can create an income source for yourself when you're older and you don't want to bend down to get that great shot at the wedding, right? Or whatever it ends up being.
Totally.
I'm totally speaking like I know anything about photography, but
Yeah. You're
like
doing great.
physically, you might not, want to do it as much. You might still want to do it some. By 60, you might be like, well, I still want to do it, but I want to do it like one event a month or something like that. Wouldn't that be cool?
Hmm.
Or, so planning for retirement and in your 60s, having some money to be set aside, because Social Security is not a lot of money for you in retirement. In fact, they're projecting now that by the time folks that are around our age will probably only get about 77% of what's projected to be in there, because they're running out of money. We're not putting enough into the system for it to work. So that's not a plan. And then as far as budgeting and saving, I would say would be very smart for entrepreneurs that listen to your show, because there could be times in your planning that you'd say, hey, I really want to have a month off, or hey, what if I get sick and I'm out for a little bit, or I get injured? Like, having some money set aside in a business emergency fund can be really smart. I suggest to people about 6 to 12 months of expenses in a business emergency fund. That helps for tough times. Think COVID or whatever, where you're like, hey, there's no weddings, or hey,
Hmm.
there's a dry season. Obviously, that's a once every 100-year kind of thing, but having some money set aside will help you stay afloat and enjoy those difficult times. Or industry changes. There's a lot of changes with AI and everything that's going on right now. How could that impact your business? How could that make things difficult for a season? So saving up some money for emergencies is very smart. And then as far as budgeting, I think if we don't think of it as restriction, we think of it as prioritizing what's most important to you in your life and in your business, then it can feel liberating. So if your top line item is, I always want to make sure I'm paying myself a great amount of money. And that's your budget line item. That's a great thing to put first. Say, hey, I want to pay myself first and I want to have that first. Or if you say, hey, I'm all about having the latest, greatest equipment and I want to be able to save up for that and make sure that I'm showing up best in my game, then put that up there. It doesn't have to be always the boring things that you think about with budgeting.
Totally.
It can be about the things that you're inspired about, that you're excited about. I like Monarch. It's a really great tool that I use. It's visually appealing. Some of those budgeting
Hmm.
tools look really ugly and boring and intimidating. Monarch is this beautiful orange colored budgeting system with fun emojis that you can throw in there. It just makes it more fun, a little more approachable, and I'd highly recommend that one.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. For years, I was the person that put their head in the sand and was like, my CPA will tell me what I made at the end of the year, and didn't want to look at my numbers, didn't want to look at my money. But yeah, I like what you're saying. I've found so much freedom in actually looking at it and setting goals and even budgeting, and it just helps you grow your money in such a different way when you're focusing on it. But it also just like gives you that peace of mind that, hey, I have a plan for this. I have the savings in case something happens. It just gives you that like sense of peace, which is really important to me too.
I love that.
Well, I know you are working on something special. You've been working on a book for a while, and I want to dig into it a little bit because it's called Own Your Time, 10 Financial Steps to Put Your Family First. Do you mind sharing any of the 10 steps?
Oh,
We're so
absolutely. Yeah.
excited.
This is a good test trial for me. Absolutely. Yeah. I would say some of it is about what we've talked about already. And I think it's really starting with a purpose and a dream and a vision for your life, as opposed to being frenetic and just moving to the next thing. I think really starting off, taking time to sit down personally, whether that's with a journal or an app on your phone, and just answering some fun questions like, hey, if I got $5 million check in my mailbox right now and no strings attached, no taxes, none of that stuff, how would I use that, and how would that change my life? Some of your answers to
That's a
that
great
question
question. Yeah, that's a
might
great
be
question.
like, oh, well, I would immediately stop this. Oh, wow, that's an informing moment for you. What would you immediately stop? Okay. Based on
Yeah.
you immediately wanting to stop that means
Laundry.
exactly, right? Laundry. Great. That's a great answer. And so you'd
Never. No.
say, if I didn't have to deal with laundry ever again, how would that change my life? What would that add into my life? Okay,
Mhm.
money can solve a lot of these problems, right? Money can help you buy back your time and say, there's a service for that. There's a person who would like to do that for me. Surprisingly, there's a person who would like to do that for me. So by proposing these questions, writing them down and saying, okay, where do I see myself in 5 years with regard to my business? What do I see as success? When I if I die, when I die, somebody's reading my obituary, what do I want them to say about me? What are the things that I'm super proud of in my life? And based on those questions and those answers that you're writing down, those will inform you on the actions that you need to start making now so that you can get there. And that might take 5 years, that might take 10 years, but isn't that a journey worth going on? And based on that motivation, then you go into the budget, then you go into the money moves that you can make to help you get there. Because dreaming is fantastic. It reminds you of being a kid. Remember when we were dreaming all the time, coming, what am I going to be when I grow up? Or, have all this open free time to think. Then with those dreams, you can get motivated to do the hard stuff, the budgeting, the saving, the investing, the client prospecting, the CRM work, so that you're actually reaching out to those clients and landing those deals, because it gives you some motivation. So without that why, you're not really going to want to move forward. Otherwise, it just seems like busy work, and it takes you out of the creative process. You're all about creativity in your podcast and your business. You just need to dream a little bit and have that creativity in your own personal life. So that's a bit of where the book starts. And then we get into the details on how to do some of those important things. And then once you've done those important things, the last portion of the book is really about crafting your ideal life. And now you have that moment to do it. Don't squander it. This is your opportunity to create the thing you've always wanted in your life. And if that is working 40 to 60 hours in the business you love, great. Like, be cool with that. Be happy with that. If that is working slightly less than that and owning a little bit more of your time and saying, hey, I want to lean into these other areas of my life, that's great too. But be true to it and hold yourself accountable and make it happen.
I love that. That's great advice. Yeah, we love dreaming. I'm a little too much of a dreamer sometimes, but it's so fun. And then getting to kind of see all of that come into fruition is just such a cool thing. And you're right, money is such a powerful tool, and I think we're afraid to talk about it, but when we can face it head on and be like, you know what, this is an area of my life that I feel really confident in, or this is an area of my life I feel like I need to learn more about. It really can do so much for all these other things we really do care about and that really do matter to us. So I love that you wrote this
Absolutely.
book.
Thank
Very
you.
excited for you. Did you
I'm
go into
excited about
Barnes
it.
and Noble and sign it, like sign any copies, or like do the sneaky thing where you sneak it on the
So,
shelves and stuff?
as we're recording this right now, it is available for pre-order. It comes out in January. So I'm very excited about the sneaky sign, and I'm definitely going to
Yeah,
do that. Thank you for that motivation.
of course. Since this is a podcast for a lot of entrepreneurs, can I ask you some of the behind the scenes about your
Absolutely.
businesses
Yes.
too?
Open
Okay.
book. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, what is the process like of writing a book? Like, did you get an agent? Was it something that you had to pitch around for a little bit, or are you self-publishing?
Yeah, so I was able to be approached by two different publishers at the near exact time, which was really cool. And the reason that they approached me is that I spent the last decade just writing and putting content out there on a specific topic that I felt very passionate about, continued to grow my audience, create content around, and create a community around. So they saw that. They said, hey, here's an opportunity to write a book. Would you work with us? And those two conversations happened simultaneously. I got a nice book agent because I was very unexperienced with any of this. I would highly recommend that. And she helped me to negotiate the two offers. I ended up going with Wiley out of New York, which is great. They're a very good publisher, and I'm learning a lot from them along the process. And then, as far as the book itself, they gave me about 6 months to put it together, and I probably procrastinated for about 3 of those months, writing very
A book
slowly.
seems like a very big project. Like it feels like a very big project.
I am like I find podcast having conversations with you today feels very easy to me. Making videos on YouTube feels very easy to me. Sitting down with my thoughts and writing them down for a really long time doesn't come as naturally to me, but I'm really glad that I did. So for the last 3 months, I jammed through it and finished just in
Yeah.
time. And my son, actually, I told him to be my coach, just being like, "Hey, if Daddy's screwing around, you tell, hey, how many chapters have you written today, Dad?" Just kind of holding me accountable. And he did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, yeah, that's so cool that I mean, were you publishing blogs on your own site or on other people's sites, or kind of a combination,
Yeah,
just
combination. So in the
consistently?
beginning, I would write on my blog a lot, and I still do today. A lot of the information that's in the book is informed from those posts, is informed from conversations I had in my podcast. So it's not as if I was writing from a blank slate. This is
Right.
these are thoughts and ideas that I've had for 10 years. Actually, a lot of it incorporates conversations like the one we're having today in the book too. I have over 500 episodes on my podcast. I've interviewed, call it maybe 400 people, and I just
Wow.
picked and chose some of the best interviews that aligned with each of the chapters and included some of that information in there too. So it's not just the story of my wife and I, it is the story of dozens of other families that have been on this journey as well. I like books like that, so I wanted to write one that was
Hmm.
sort of, a combination of my story as well as other people's story, as well as, easy actionable advice to follow. That's the type of book I like to read, so I wanted to write that.
Yeah, for sure. That is so cool. And it's so cool to have you be so consistent in creating content and helping people and serving a community. and then for like both publishers to come at you at the same time of like, oh, I guess it's time for this step now, isn't it?
Yeah,
But just encouraging that, staying consistent and creating conversations gets you noticed eventually, even if it takes time. I
absolutely.
mean, 10 years is a long time, but that's also like kind of how it goes, right? Is that
Yeah, I,
it's,
I I really had no intention of pursuing writing a book, but when it came up, I'm like, you know what? That'd be really
yeah.
cool. I'd love to call
Yeah,
myself an
so
author. I'd love to have
cool.
something to hold in my hands and say, and show my kids like, hey, if you're working hard on something, it can pay off. I'm under no illusion. Just I'll be transparent with everybody. Numbers wise, I'm under no illusion that this is going to make me a bunch of money.
Mm,
There's an advance that comes with it, but then you also have to sell that many books in order to make up the advance. So they're not going to make me pay back
yeah.
the advance or anything like that, but I still have a lot of work to do in order to get it out there, promote it. I'm going to try to get on as many podcasts as possible to talk about it and have some good genuine conversations. I don't want to be pitching it the whole time during the interviews because that seems a little slimy. So, just having conversations around it, helping people where they are and seeing if it fits. I have never been the best marketer when it comes to like creating these massive email funnels and tripwires and things like that because I don't know. I'm not as adept at kind of pushing things down people's throats, or at least feels like that.
Yeah.
So I might not sell as many as some people do, and I'm not saying all authors do that or anything like that. But I have some steps to learn that would work based on my personality that will help me get it out there in a way that feels good to me. So I'm still working on that.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's good advice though of, I think in the movies it can look like you get a book deal and then
Oh yeah.
everyone's marketing it for you and all this money rolls in, and really everyone I've known that's written a book works very, very hard to get
Yes.
the book out for people to see it
Yeah.
and to read it and everything. So there's a
And
lot of work
sometimes
on
it's a
both
hit, and
sides.
sometimes you just did okay, and that's okay too. Like so I hope it's a big hit, but at the end of the day, I'm just gonna keep churning out great content and helping people and serving, and because I like what I do anyway. It was the book came along and it was like, hey, you want to do that? Yeah, sure. Let's give that a try. So I hope it helps
Yeah.
people, but if it's not like a gigantic smashing success, I think I'm gonna be just fine.
Well, I'm sure it will be. It's
Thank you.
super, information everybody needs. So we're excited to get it out there for you, with you as well. But also just like excited for you because I think even, like you said, even just writing the book is a win in itself. So that's
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm
amazing.
pumped. Thank you.
And then what does your podcast look like as far as, monetizing your business? How have you figured out how to create content and also run, sustain your life through that?
Absolutely. So, yeah, in the beginning, when I left my job, I was doing about half of my revenue coming in from Marriage, Kids, and Money, which is it's my website, it's my podcast, it's my YouTube channel, things like that. And I make money through advertisements, I make money through affiliate marketing and sponsorships. So those are the main three things that I do with Marriage, Kids, and Money as the media property. And then the other half at that time was creating content for other people's brands. So I would, serve as YouTube video talent for somebody's channel, or I would be a brand ambassador for a financial services company. And that worked really well for me for about 4 years. Over the last year, I said, well, what could I do to just try to live on and experiment with the 100% Marriage, Kids, and Money and leave out the freelance stuff and see how that goes? So this is my first year doing it. I'm doing okay. It was a big hit, obviously revenue wise, to say goodbye to some of that stuff. But I think
Mm-hmm.
long term, it's a goal that I wanted to move forward with because again, I am helping my business and the things that I care about more grow as opposed to doing it for other people. And again, like my corporate world, after a little while, I'm like, okay, I can only work on your goals for so long without working on mine. So I almost feel like that way with
Yeah.
doing freelance work from time to time. But most of the freelance work I did also aligned with my vision as well as my beliefs and my morals. So I felt good with that. I wouldn't take anything that didn't feel right. But that being said, the more I can do to grow Hill Media and maybe have a business that my kids can be a part of when they get older, I think that'd be really cool. So I'm trying to grow the property, trying to grow the properties now to help grow that.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah.
that vision too of creating something for your kids.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons I invited you on here, because I was like, he does what I do, which is finding ways to employ your kids through your business
Oh yeah.
too and help them start investing early. What are some of the things that you're doing with them, or kind of like how are
Sure.
you helping them learn about money even at 10 and no 11 and 13?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's one of my favorite conversations. I have been talking to my kids about money, probably a little too much, honestly. But when
They're
but
like,
when
Dad.
they're like, "Dad," yeah, I'm like the annoying money dad. But probably since they were 5, Zoe joined me as a co-host on my podcast. She would join, once a month and do a money quiz with me. It's an opportunity for financial literacy for her, but also for other parents who are listening to maybe play along at home with their own kids. And so ever since she was 5 and now she's 13, she has been doing that. Over the past couple of years, Zoe said to me, "Dad, I don't really want to be on your show anymore. I'm like 12, I'm like 13. It's not
You're
something I'm
like, dang
interested in."
it.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, the end of an era." My son still does it with me. He's 11. So he joined in to do 2 segments a month. And then they also help me with the business. Zoe's edited my short form videos. Zoe has appeared, as talent in some of the videos. She's been voiceover talent. Let's see what else. Lots of other things. Oh, just generally like, administrative task. I've got a bunch of files on my Google Drive that I need to move over to another Google Drive. It's a pain in the butt. Can you do that for me, or while you're watching Roblox, or while you're watching
Yeah,
YouTube videos? Yeah, sure. So I get to pay them for those things that I would be paying another administrative assistant to do. Might as well pay my
totally.
kids to do it if they could do it just fine and be helpful. You obviously have to pay them a reasonable rate based on their skill set as well as the work that they're doing to make that, IRS compliant. You can't pay them for doing chores around the house. Can't say, "Hey, you took out the trash. Let me pay you $500 an hour for that." It's like, that doesn't work. It has to be
Yeah,
associated with your business. It has to be helpful. It has to be a reasonable rate that you would actually pay somebody to do. But over whatever's in just 8 years, 6 years for Calvin, it's made a big difference. And then with that pay, I'm able to contribute to their Roth IRAs. You can only do that with earned income. And so since I have a business and they are working with that business, I can contribute to their Roth IRAs with that money. Right now, they both have around, I think it's like $8,500 in their Roth IRAs. It's not a gigantic, crazy amount of money, but for a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, that's a lot of
yeah,
money. And what that can do with compound interest over time can help them to reach their own version of coast fire financial independence in their 40s or later on. So I'm really excited about that growth. I think back about my net worth at age 28. I had a negative $50,000 net worth, and I work on my kids' net worth charts, and they're already in the 10,000. So it's like they have such a leg up on
yeah.
me, so almost 20 years ahead of where I was. So it's exciting, and it gives me an opportunity to work with them in the business and help them out for the future.
I love that. Yeah, I think that that is such a gift, not only learning the financial literacy early, but starting the investing early. And I mean, you mentioned this briefly, like we don't really know how our world is going to change, how careers are going to change, and our kids are similar ages of we're trying to make sure they
Yeah.
know the things that are going to serve them well, but we don't really know what's going to
So
happen,
true.
like what their jobs are going to be or whatever. And so to kind of get them started early on something that is going to give them more peace and more stability, I think it's just such a cool gift to get to give kids when you can and when you have a business that like helps you do that. So I love
Absolutely.
hearing that.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
mean, I hope that they want to work on the business, and if they don't, it could be something that maybe I could sell in the future too, and that could support them as
Yeah.
as well. So we'll see.
For sure, for sure. Are you offering any service-based income or anything like that? Like, do you
Yes,
do coaching calls and
I do coaching
speaking
calls
and
as well, and I do speaking. I do host work at conferences, so I'll be on stage and try to be an MC, things like that. So those types of services have been great. I do coaching mostly online and not in person, so that I can keep more of my time at home and then being able to be there for the kids. I used to do a lot more speaking when I started. During the pandemic, and then my kids growing up, as well as my wife choosing a new career path and going back to school, I pared back a little bit of the speaking, but I am doing more of it now that they're both middle schoolers, and
Yeah.
they need a lot less of my time now as a dad, which is both sad and happy. I'm sure a lot of parents out there would understand.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Well, I'm so glad that you came on today and that we've gotten to talk about all these different topics. Anything else that if you want people to connect with you, any place online that people can find you and connect?
Yeah, if you're listening to this podcast, you can check out Marriage, Kids, and Money. It's a podcast on all major podcast players. And if you're interested in learning more about the book, it's Own Your Time by Andy Hill. You can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Just type in Own Your Time by Andy Hill.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Andy. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Dangerous Creatives podcast. Check out dangerschool.com to join our community and support the show. Thanks to our team, Jen Madigan Creative, for producing, and to Fire Choir for our intro music. Tune in again next time, and thanks for your support.